Thanks everybody for coming tonight. Welcome to my house. Hope you wiped your feet before you came in.
Thanks for dressing up.
Here's my good t-shirt. You guys are going to hear something pretty special tonight. Parthenon Huxley. Thank you so much, Jay.
Count your blessings, one by one, yeah, and look to the light of the morning sun. Every season, turn the soil, yeah, plant your seeds and watch 'em grow, watch 'em grow.
From Kristen Robinson at Billboard, who is building the future of AI music? Start with these 11 companies.
The Billboard Power 100 honorees answer this question: what are your frustrations with the music industry right now?
And from Shane Shapiro for Forbes, can an upload fee help fix music streaming? More fees, Jay. Lots and lots of things to talk about. We are glad you're here. We're going to start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. 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 Standing by. Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
Wow, Jay, I got to say, talk about just heartwarming and yet just really sad. What a lovely intro.
Yeah, that was Parthenon Huxley. That was the intro to a living room show he did at my house years ago, and he put it out as a CD for fans called Live in Your Living Room, and that song is called Turn the Soil. And, we lost a dear friend and just a great musician this last week in Parthenon Huxley. You might see him online as P. Hux. But just a tragic loss. This is Grammy week, and this is being recorded on the day of the Grammys, so we will have sort of a recap next week.
Yes, and I know you got to go over to Loyola Marymount and do a little presentation to their students, and man, that sounds like that was a really fun day for you.
It really was. I had never spoken at Loyola Marymount, and a huge shout out to our friend Lisa Ferris, and especially Professor Jason DeMello and their incredible, music business class. These students were highly engaged, and it was a 2-hour plus discussion, really collaborative. They're going to do great things. That was really super cool.
And I'm still struck by how many colleges have wonderful music business programs. If only those were around when I was in school. I would have been in. It's so amazing that they exist these days.
Yeah.
It's lovely. Here's some interesting headlines that really caught our attention. This first one is from Murray Stassen over at Music Business Worldwide. DistroKid is exploring a sale. So according to multiple strong sources, distribution platform DistroKid is holding talks with potential buyers over a big money sale. So Music Business Worldwide hears that DistroKid is being repped by both Rain and Goldman Sachs in these discussions.
Yeah, super interesting. The number being bandied around is $2 billion, although some sources suggest that that price could escalate even higher. And there was another story about an acquisition or potential one this week, and it was by a few people over at Billboard: Ed Christman, Elizabeth Diltz Marshall, and Kristen Robinson. And the headline was Bertelsmann reportedly in talks to buy Concord. So BMG Rights Management, which is a division of the German media conglomerate Bertelsmann, they're in talks to acquire Concord. And that's according to three sources close to the discussions.
Right. Well, Concord could sell for more than $6.6 billion, sources tell Billboard. The company previously explored a sale back in 2022 when offers for the large independent music company's repertoire and other businesses reached $4.8 billion. Since then, the company has spent around $1.8 billion of capital raised from an asset-backed securitization. Bloomberg reported earlier this last week on Thursday that the transaction could be worth as much as, wait for it, $7 billion.
Wow. When reached for a comment, a Concord spokesperson said, as a matter of policy, we don't comment on rumors or speculation. But coming from the team at Billboard, I put a lot of faith in this, and we'll be watching this story really closely. The next thing that sort of piqued our imagination this week was from James Hanley at Music Business Worldwide, and the headline was Spotify says it paid out over $11 billion to the music industry in 2025. So back in September last year, Spotify founder Daniel Ek declared the streaming giant had, quote, helped reshape an industry that is not only growing again, but reaching new heights, end quote.
Right. Well, last week, Spotify announced it paid out more than $11 billion to the music industry in 2025, which it says is the largest annual payment to music from any retailer in history. Spotify previously paid out a record $10 billion to the music industry in 2024 and $9 billion the prior year.
Yeah, the latest figure revealed in a blog post by Spotify's head of music, Charlie Hellman, represents year-over-year growth of more than 10% and brings the service's all-time payouts to nearly $70 billion. That's all-time. Spotify's music industry payout receipts include record companies and music publishers, plus independent distributors, performing rights organizations, and collecting societies.
Another piece by our friend Mark Mulligan over at Media, why the music industry needs to learn to live with AI. So he says music is emerging as a case study of where AI is actually delivering and getting better by the day. He says this means that everyone in the music industry needs to start thinking about how to coexist with AI, whether they like it or not.
Right. So don't miss Mark's thoughts on AI. There's a link in your morning coffee. It's highly recommended. The next story that we saw that we talked about, Murray Stassen wrote this for Music Business Worldwide, and the headline was 60,000 AI tracks hit Deezer daily as platform moves to license detection tech to wider music industry. So the Paris headquartered streaming service, right, that's Deezer, revealed these new figures last week, confirming that synthetic content now accounts for roughly 39% of all music delivered to their platform every day.
Right. Well, the 60,000 figure marks another significant jump from the 50,000 tracks Deezer reported in November, the 30,000 in September, and the 10,000 it disclosed when it first launched its AI detection tool back in January of 2025, only a year ago. A year on from that launch, Deezer says it has detected and tagged over 13.4 million AI-generated tracks on its platform, and it's now making its detection technology commercially available.
That's the point, right? The company says it's already performed successful tests with industry partners, including French collecting society, SECIM. From now on, we are licensing the tech to make it widely available. Deezer says. Deezer continues to lead the way in promoting a transparent experience for artists and fans with a commitment to fight AI music fraud across our industry.
Well, Deezer also revealed that up to 85% of all streams on AI-generated music were fraudulent in 2025, up from the 70% figure it reported last year. Those streams are demonetized and removed from the royalty pool. By comparison, streaming fraud across Deezer's entire catalog accounted for 8% of all streams in 2025.
Yeah, I've read good things about their fraud detection, AI detection tools that they use. And I like that they're sharing those with the broader music industry.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Jay, before we get going on the big stories, I'm going to say we thank our sponsors because we certainly appreciate their participation every week, including our friends over at Hypebot. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and the trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. It is edited daily by founder Bruce Houghton with help from Jeremy Young. Hypebot is published and supported by live music discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Yes, sir. Bands in Town, now over 100 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It's the #1 artist services platform, connecting over 700,000 artists with their superfans. So managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote their tour dates to over 4 billion music fans across all platforms.
And every week I get to hang out with one of my best friends, Jay Gilbert, music industry consultant, curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music Groups. And one of those people, when I first met him, I just knew we had a very similar taste in music.
Yeah, we clicked right away. And I'm very fortunate that Mike agreed to do this podcast with me. We're well over 300 episodes together and just still having a great time. Mike, if you don't know by now, a longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Group.
Well, let's jump into the big stories. This first one is from our friend Kristen Robinson over at Billboard. The title of the article, Who is Building the Future of AI Music? Start with these 11 companies. So ever since Ghost Rider's so-called fake Drake song, Heart on My Sleeve, hit TikTok back in May of 2023, the music industry has been fixated on the opportunities and threats of the AI age.
Right. Kristen breaks this down beautifully. She writes that a lot has transpired since then. That's less than 2 years. While 2023 was defined by the launch of many AI music companies, including Suno in the final days of the year, 2024 was the first year when music firms got serious about enforcing their rights, launching lawsuits to battle the actions of some of the newcomers. By the time 2025 came around, more and more players in the space were ready to find a path forward together through licensing and settlements.
And she says, while those settlements and deals are still taking shape heading into 2026, one thing seems certain. The music industry has accepted that the AI age is here, and they want to work with, not against, AI. As Universal Music Group's chief digital officer, Michael Nash, once put it, if you don't claim a seat at the dinner table, you might wind up on the menu.
So here are a few of the many companies leading the future of AI music in 2026, according to Kristen Robinson. And we'll kick it off with Suno. It's impossible to make a list about the companies leading the future of AI music without talking about Suno, fresh off a $250 million Series C fundraise and a valuation of $2.45 billion. The Cambridge, Mass-based startup has quickly become the most well-known company for creating realistic AI-generated music today. According to an investor pitch deck obtained by Billboard, Suno generates a Spotify catalog's worth of music every 2 weeks and has the goal to launch a social media service in the future.
Well, if successful, Suno's ambitions have the possibility of upending the current state of the music business. And while the company is still being sued by Universal Music Group and Sony Music for copyright infringement, it recently settled with Warner Music Group, showing signs that in 2026, it might be able to make amends with the music industry.
Next up is Udio. Though historically Udio has often been mentioned alongside Suno, Udio is now carving a different lane for itself in 2026, and it's worth watching to see how it goes. Udio and Suno were both sued by the three major music companies in the summer of 2024, but Udio came to the table to start settling its disputes, beginning with a deal with Universal in late 2025.
As part of that deal's announcement, Udio vowed to pivot its service away from creating new songs with a simple prompt based on unlicensed training data to become a fully licensed music remixing and fan engagement platform. Since then, Udio has also struck a similar deal with Warner Music Group. Sony Music is still pursuing its part of the 2024 lawsuit.
Yeah, Kristen writes, next up, 11 Labs, and that includes 11 Music. While 11 Labs is best known as an AI audio company, creating voice models for both superstars and hobbyists alike, the company has become increasingly invested in song making too, with its music model, 11 Music. And that launched in August of last year. At the time of its launch, it also announced AI licensing deals with Merlin and Cobalt, the first known of its kind, opening up new revenue stream for participating songwriters and artists who were open to the model training on their work.
So at the time of its launch, 11 Music was described by Cobalt in an email to its signees obtained by Billboard as a scalable, AI-driven production music library that creates custom audio for studios, brands, and creators. It's not meant to replace traditional uses of one's repertoire, but to add value alongside them. Recently, however, 11 Labs released an album of AI-generated songs made alongside artists like Liza Minnelli and Art Garfunkel, possibly hinting at more consumer-facing ambitions for its tool.
Right. Next up, Spotify. In October, Spotify announced that it was partnering with the major labels, Believe and Merlin, to create generative AI tools in the near future. While the details of what exactly these tools are remain unclear, the company laid out a list of principles. This includes that artists have to choose to participate, and that the tools will be focused on the artist-fan connection.
On Billboard's On the Record podcast, shortly after the announcement, Spotify's global head of marketing and policy music business, Sam Duboff, was asked if these tools included AI-powered remixing of current songs. And he said, yeah, it's just in that space of existing artists and connections and building on artist catalogs with their consent, not tools that are built to compete or kind of siphon off royalties.
Yeah, I think that key line there is with their consent. Next up, Sound Patrol. A research lab for large music models and a powerful AI detector, Sound Patrol has caught the attention of the major music companies. Universal Music Group, Sony Music, they're both collaborating with the firm to, quote, protect artists from the unchecked copyright infringement activity coming from AI music generators, end quote. To do this, the company employs a patent-pending forensic AI model that uses audio fingerprinting and neural embeddings, whatever that is, to identify the influence of human-made works in fully or partially AI-created music.
According to Foley and Lardner, that's the law firm that represents Sound Patrol, the company can identify covers, remixes, and generative AI derivatives while continuously learning from new releases. It's a technology that could prove critical for large music companies attempting to police their millions of copyrights in the AI age against unauthorized exploitation.
Right. Next up, Deezer. French streaming service Deezer has become the industry's most valuable source of research on the growing phenomenon of AI-generated music. To date, most streaming services are approaching the growth of AI content on their platforms with caution, announcing little to no AI-specific policies to curb its distribution or popularity. But Deezer has decided to be much more bold in its approach to AI music.
So since January of 2025, the company has been transparent about how many fully AI-generated songs are being uploaded daily. The first tally showed 10,000 fully AI-generated songs were uploaded daily, and by the end of that year, that number was up to 50,000. To address this, the company is barring fully AI songs from editorial or algorithmic recommendations, and it is adding a visible tag on the content to distinguish it from other human-made works.
Yeah, Deezer is really leading the pack with that. A couple more. One is Splice. You probably heard about Splice. They became one of the most beloved music tech companies in the 2010s as a massive sample and sound library. And in the 2020s, the company seemed ready to tackle the wild west of generative AI. It first dabbled in non-generative AI with the launch of Create in 2023. That's a tool that playfully mixes and matches samples together to spark users' creativity. More recently, it acquired Kits AI, a voice model company, and partnered with UMG to develop commercial AI tools and AI-powered virtual instruments using generative AI technology.
Well, you can't talk about AI without talking about this next company, NVIDIA. AI chip-making giant NVIDIA is new to the music world, but given its sheer size, it should not be underestimated. In January, the company announced a new partnership with UMG, saying that the collaboration will involve research and development, the company said, with an emphasis on advancing human music creation and rights holder compensation, including the identification of copyrighted works in AI uses. Much of that collaboration will center on NVIDIA's Music Flamingo initiative, launched in November, which allows for in-depth analysis of music below the surface level, digging into elements such as harmony, musical structure, tempo, instrumentation, key, lyricism, musical theory, cultural and historical context and dynamics.
Wow, pretty comprehensive. Those are among the other metrics, including things like emotional resonance and chord progressions and, hooks. An AI-powered remixing app called Hook has made a name for itself, collaborating with the likes of The Weeknd, Joji, and Metro Boomin, Lil Wayne, and Empire of the Sun, and forming licensing deals with Downtown and BMG.
So created to solve the problem of unauthorized mashups and sped up, slowed down versions of songs on social media, a source close to the company says there are more licensing deals with music companies on the way to fill out its catalog of tracks. But for now, Hook already offers select songs from talents like Sway Lee, Soulja Boy, Jaden Smith, Killer Mike, and Cash Cobain.
Right. Our next story, this is super interesting, and this was written by the entire Billboard staff. The headline, Billboard Power 100 honorees answer this question. What are your frustrations with the music industry right now? So as part of the questionnaire in this year's Power 100 list, honorees were prompted to give their thoughts on 4 separate questions: the state of the industry, what they foresee for the future of the business, the charities they support, and what would they do if they didn't work in music? So over the next several days, Billboard will run a roundup of these responses, to each of these questions, their way of offering a snapshot of what the biggest players in the industry are thinking as we head into the new year.
Well, this first installment focuses on the following question. What are your frustrations with the industry right now? In the answers, the executives hit on a few common themes. On the A&R front, one frequently voiced frustration was an over-reliance on data and too little commitment to traditional methods of artist development, while others seemed concerned about the lack of a united front in the business, or, as one executive put it, when it's everyone against the world, it's a bit easier.
But more striking was the wide range of responses, from frustration around low streaming payouts to the loss of jobs at record labels to AI companies training their models on music without consent or payment to rights holders, to one age-old complaint, so-called bad actors who prey on vulnerable artists.
Right. So here are a few highlights. First up is Barry Weiss. He's from Records. He says, I am seeing a decided lack of artist development and too much reliant on data-led signings, with everyone fishing in the same pond for talent. Ezekiel Lewis over at Epic Records said, we built this industry on belief, not algorithms, not data points, but on someone hearing something raw and unfinished and saying, yes, I hear it too. Let's build this together. Now we've traded partnerships for pipelines. We chase streams instead of careers, moments instead of catalogs. He says the math tells us to flood the market, more releases, faster cycles, lower investment per artist. But we all know what we're losing. We're losing the artists who need 3 albums to find their voice. We're losing the trust that said we're in this for the long term. We're losing the difference between administrators of content and builders of culture. Wow, amen.
Yeah, Lewis goes on to say that quality takes time. It takes believing before the proof exists. Yes, it's riskier, but the alternative is a future where music is infinite, yet none of it matters. The industry won't change because we're nostalgic. It'll change because enough of us decide that building something special that lasts is better business than strip mining attention. We can be curators again. We can be partners again. We can be believers again. The question is whether we want to.
This from Chris Arend over at the MLC. There remains huge opportunity for the industry to operate much more efficiently. It's encouraging that more and more companies are doing more with data. Data drives discovery and data drives the dollars. So we need to manage data better and exchange it more freely.
Right. And from our friend David Israelite from the NMPA, he says, I'm frustrated that the government seems more inclined to work against us than for us on AI questions. They see it as an arms race, and they want to flatten the speed bumps. We're also frustrated that we haven't seen more reforms from collecting societies. As far as transparency, songwriters should have a right to transparency as well as freedom of movement to another society.
Ramon Villa over at Primary Wave said, with so much new music coming so fast, we can't live with it long enough. Also, the datafication of the art form. Justin Shukat, also at Primary Wave, said the loss of jobs on the label side is very troubling. Brad Navin from The Orchard said bad actors offering bad deals and artists paying the price.
Right. These are all frustrations these executives have, including Glenn Barros over at Acceleration Music. Glenn says it's becoming increasingly frustrating to cut through the clutter and reach potential fans with new music. With the digital gates being wide open, the relentless flood of new music, both human and artificially created, as well as the ever-expanding amount of other entertainment content, makes capturing an audience's attention incredibly challenging. I truly hope that our industry eventually finds a happy medium that allows for meaningful curation without restricting access to the market. It'll be better for the fan, for the artist, and for the industry.
Elizabeth Matthews over at ASCAP weighed in, saying that some tech companies think that they can steal creators' works with no consent, credit, or payment. There is nothing more dangerous than an environment that does not respect creators and the law. Advocacy has been in ASCAP's DNA for more than 100 years, and we will always fight for our members to be fairly compensated for the use of their music.
Yeah, and a couple more. This one from Bob Valentine over at Concord. He says, because rights are extremely fragmented, it continues to be quite challenging for technology platforms, media companies, and other potential third-party licensees to do business with us as an industry. And finally, from Mike Karen over at APG, I don't see frustrations, only opportunities. We now have a much larger pool of talent, new technology, and larger potential audience. We have fewer gatekeepers and more ability to manage fans' direct-to-consumer relationships. We also have big shifts and trend changes. If you like to change, or if you like change, then you're in the right business, and it's a great time.
Well, very interesting comments and concerns. And boy, the first one really struck with me about, we are not giving artists enough time to really develop in terms of releases. And, and when we first got in the business, maybe you got a second record, occasionally a third record, but some of the biggest selling artists of all time took a long time to develop. Sometimes their fifth or sixth album. I think of Pink Floyd for sure.
Well, yeah,
Dark Side of the Moon, I think, was their seventh album.
Yeah, and we talk
would
about
that ever happen today.
These 3-album artist development, I guess you'd call it, with bands like Cheap Trick, for example, or Kiss or Journey or whoever it is. They needed a few albums to sort of find their way, and they toured and got better and better and better. But, today there's no tolerance for that. You may have an initial deal that's a few songs to see how you do.
Yeah, but it does take time a lot of the time. So anyway, well, listen, our final story is by Shane Shapiro, PhD, a contributor for Forbes. Could an upload fee help fix music streaming? He says, taking a page from plane tickets, hotel taxes, and live music, could this be a way to emerging artists? He says, for many people who stream music every day, how artists and rights holders are paid is not a primary concern. Convenience and access matter far more. For subscribers, there is an implicit assumption that part of their monthly fee compensates those who create the music they enjoy.
Right. It's not dissimilar to boarding a plane. You buy a ticket, you expect to ride safely from point A to point B and assume, without interrogating the system, that everyone involved is making that journey possible, is being paid, but as long as the flights take off and lands, the transaction feels complete. Likewise, if the song plays on Spotify or Apple Music, the user believes they're getting what they paid for. But this, of course, is not the case in aviation, nor is it in music. Behind the scenes, the streaming economy is far more complicated and far less equitable.
Right. On Spotify, artists must reach 1,000 monthly streams before royalty payments are triggered. This single rule effectively excludes an estimated 75% of all uploaded music from earning anything. At the same time, when royalties are paid across all services, the value of a stream varies dramatically by territory, which rights administration organization is collecting the revenue, and an artist or rights holder's contractual arrangements with their business partners, such as labels or distributors.
Right. Plus, the geographic disparities are stark. 1 million streams generates around $10,000 in Sweden. In Nigeria, that same level of engagement is worth closer to $300. Moreover, these figures fluctuate further, depending on which platform the customer is using, the time of day one is listening, and how much music is being streamed at a given time, and other specifics. All the while, streaming services retain about 30% of the revenue before any distribution occurs.
Unsurprisingly, this has prompted serious debate about how streaming payouts should be calculated. Some platforms, such as Deezer, have explored user-centric or equitable remuneration models that pay artists based on what individual subscribers actually listen to. Others, including Spotify and Apple Music, continue to pool revenue and distribute it pro rata. Government inquiries and intense debate has not led to any further widespread reform at the top end.
Add-on streaming fraud, the mass upload of AI-generated music, much of it slop, and algorithmic playlisting, the fact that over 40 countries lack copyright management systems, and other inefficiencies, and it becomes clear that paying one's rent or mortgage with streaming income is unattainable for most.
Shane says, I believe there is another remedy, one widespread across other sectors, including other parts of the music industry, that we're ignoring here. What if there was a cost, albeit very small, to upload music in the first place? And what if the revenue from such a cost were directed intentionally and transparently to supporting grassroots efforts?
That's right, an upload fee. First, consider the money. If more than 100,000 tracks are uploaded to streaming services each day, and the cost is about 5 cents per track, such a fee would generate approximately $5,000 a day, $35,000 a week, or $1.82 million every year. Second, the potential behavior change. Such a fee could act as a modest but effective deterrent to streaming fraudsters who change artist names or BPMs to siphon off royalties from genuine rights holders because they would, in effect, have to pay to play.
He says it could also add a barrier to those who benefit from mass uploading of low-quality or AI-generated content designed purely to game algorithms. Moreover, it may encourage more intentional curation at a time when an estimated 75% of uploaded tracks are never listened to. If there's a modest barrier or another step to pass through, I believe some would think it's not worth the trouble. Alongside this, it could go a long way toward addressing another challenge in streaming, the climate.
Yeah, I don't know if that's 75% of uploaded tracks never being listened to. I think that's 25% per our last Luminate report, but let's not let facts get in the way of a good story. And this is a good story because I do think we should have the conversation about what if there was a fee to upload your music. So every uploaded track consumes energy and water through storage and data transfer, contributing to emissions regardless of whether it's ever played. Reducing volume for volume's sake could lower the sector's digital footprint. Naturally, this raises important questions. Where would the money go? Who would manage it? And how would artists benefit?
Shane says, for me, if streaming is to become more human and more equitable, a healthier system requires shared responsibility across the entire supply chain. An upload fee will not fix streaming on its own in the eyes of those who think it is broken, but it could create new capital, discourage abuse, and help rebuild the foundation of a music economy that currently extracts far more than it reinvests.
Right. He ends it by saying that sometimes the most impactful reforms don't happen at the point of consumption, but at the moment of entry. If we're streaming more, we need to invest more. And this is a way to do that in a way that benefits humans over AI and artistry over algorithms. I think it's an interesting debate. I think we should have those conversations and take a look at it because, he mentions that 75% streamed less than 1,000 in the last 12 months. And that's what we're hearing from from the Luminate report. The last number I saw, there were 253 ISRCs, so basically tracks that they're tracking right now. And something like 88% of them streamed 1,000 or less in last year. So with that, it's only going to get more and more, right? I think the number from the Luminate report this last time was 106,000 tracks on average uploaded every day. And there are those that estimate that if you included a lot of YouTube and SoundCloud only releases, that number could triple. Yeah. So what if you had to pay a small fee to place that if the velocity wasn't at a certain level? I don't know. I just think it's a really great conversation to have.
Yes, it is. But it is certainly an issue to consider that how much stuff is being uploaded. And it's just, there's no gatekeepers, and people are rightly so sort of critical of the way the old music business used to be. But, this is now with no gatekeepers. And so we have this problem. So it's very difficult to kind of find that sweet spot in the middle, whatever that is.
Yeah,
and I'm not even sure what that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we do need to wrap up the show. We want to thanks everyone for listening. If you did enjoy the show, please just tell one friend. Jay and I would certainly appreciate that. Music is by the Licorice Quartet. And big thanks to our sponsors, our good friends over at Hypebot and Bands in Town. Boy, we certainly appreciate their participation every week. And on behalf of my good friend Jay Gilbert, I'm Mike Etchart. Thanks for listening, and we will be back next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.